Hello coders, have you ever wondered how to host multiple PHP websites behind a single web server? Well, that is what I'm going to be demonstrating in today's tutorial using Docker. The first thing that we need to do is create a Docker Compose file. This file is a YAML file. It is going to hold the configuration of the services for the containers that we're going to build and run. So the first thing is to create a file in our root directory here. We're going to call this docker-compose.yaml. So YML or YAML if you want. In the Docker Compose file, set the version. I'm going to set this to 3.9. Under the version, add networks. And then within networks, add demo. This is going to create a network that we can attach all of our services to. The first service that we need to create is the Nginx service. The Nginx service will have a container name called Nginx-proxy. As this is our web server, we need to expose and publish port 80. And finally, we need to attach this service to our demo network. Before we go any further, please ensure that your indentation is correct. I have something wrong here. So we have services, the service is Nginx. We have 3 tabs into container name, and we've got ports and networks, and we need to move the port like so. Once that is done, we need to create a directory called Nginx-proxy in the root directory. This is going to hold the configuration for our Nginx proxy server. Within the Nginx-proxy directory, we need to create a Docker file. So create a file and just call it Docker file. Ensure that the D of Docker is capitalized. In this Docker file, we need to supply the from keyword. This is going to indicate which base image we are going to be using. And in this case, we're going to be using Nginx. So type from Nginx. Back in the Docker Compose file, we need to supply the path in which this Docker file resides. In the Nginx service, create the parameter build. This build will have the path to our Docker file. So in this case, it is Nginx-proxy. We now need to create our 3 separate PHP sites. We're going to do this by creating 3 separate directories within our root folder. The first directory is going to be called site-a. The second directory is going to be called site-b. And the third directory is going to be called site-c. Obviously, this is just for demo purposes, but this could be a WordPress site, it could be a content management site, it could be a Laravel site or a Symfony site or anything like that. Once that is done, we're going to create individual Docker files for each of these sites. Within the site-a directory, we're going to create a new file and call that Docker file. And in this file, we're also going to supply the from keyword, but this time we're going to use the base image of PHP with the version 8-fpm. Copy this file to each of the site directories. So copy Docker file from site A, paste it into site B, and paste it into site C. Obviously, these sites will be configured totally different in the real world. Again, this could be a site for a Laravel CMS, or it could be for a PHP Symfony API. In each of these site directories, we're going to create a directory called public. And in the public directory, we're going to create an index.php file. In site A's index.php file, we're going to have an echo that says hello from site A. In site B's index.php file, we're going to have echo hello from site B. And in site C's index.php file, we're going to echo hello from site C. Before we go any further, let's just do a quick recap and ensure that all of our directory structures and all of our files are correct. We have the Nginx proxy directory here. We have a Docker file within it, which is saying from Nginx. we have a site A directory with a public directory within it. Within that, we have an index.php file, and we're echoing hello from site A. In the site A directory, we also have a Docker file which has the from keyword, and we're using the PHP Docker image using the version PHP 8-FPM. And that is the same for the Docker files within site B and within site C. Site B has a public directory with the index.php file that says hello from site B. That is what is echoed out. In site C, we have the index.php file within the public directory with the echo hello from site C. And of course, we have our Docker Compose file where we're supplying the version, the networks, and of course the services. The first and only service that we have here at the moment is the Nginx service. It has a container name of Nginx-proxy. We're supplying the build, which is the Nginx-proxy directory, which uses the Docker file within our Nginx-proxy directory. We're supplying the ports, and we're exposing and publishing port 80, and we're attaching this service to the demo network. The next thing we need to do is to create a Docker service for each of the PHP sites that we have. Underneath the Nginx service, create a new service and call it site-a. Underneath the site-a service, create a service called site-b. And underneath the service site-b, create the service site-c. Each of these services are going to look pretty similar in terms of their configuration, so we're going to do this together. In each of the site services, add the build parameter with the path to our Docker file. In this case, site A has the path of site-a. Site-b has the path of site-b, and site-c has the path of site-c. This is going to be using the Docker files that we have supplied within these websites. Because we're using PHP FPM, we need to expose port 9000. This means that for each of these site services, include the parameter expose with the value of 9000. We also need to attach each of these site services to our demo network, but we need to do so using an alias. Supply the network parameter, supply the demo name, and then within that supply an alias with the first value of site-a for the site-a service. Do the same thing for site B, but supply the alias of site B. Also attach the network to site C, but also ensure that the alias is set to site C. The next thing we need to do is mount the public directory to each one of these site services. And we do this using the volumes parameter. So supply volumes, and then the first value will be the path, which is on our local system here. So site-a/public. Now we need to bind mount this to the directory within the container, which is var/www/html. And we need this parameter in each of our site services. So add that to site B and add that to site C. We now need to tell Nginx about these site services and how to connect to them. We do that through the Nginx configuration. We're going to create an Nginx configuration for each one of these sites, because remember, these could be totally different and configured in very different ways. So it's best to have a configuration file for each of these sites. Within our Nginx-proxy folder, create a new folder called conf. Within that folder, create another folder called sites. In the sites folder, we need a file for the configuration of each of the sites. Let's create the site-a.conf file. We also want to create a site-b.conf file. and a site-c.conf file. Now, in this example, the conf files are going to be relatively the same for this demonstration, but you can imagine that these could be very different for whatever website you require. Let's first pick on site-a.conf. We need to create a server block. Within this server block, we need to listen to port 80. We're also going to give this server a server name, and we're going to set this to be server_name with the value of site-a.com. We're going to give this server a root directory, so supply the parameter root, and the directory will be /var/www/html. Now we get to supply the locations. The first location that we need is to capture all the requests going to /. Within this location block, we're going to try to access the index.php file supplying any of the query strings. So type try_files with the variable URI space another URI /. That's going to go to /index.php with the query string if we have one. We need to have a second location block to capture and handle requests made by PHP files. This location needs to handle and get all of the PHP files that have been sent to the server. So we use regular expression here to say that we need to have all of the files with the extension of .php. In this location block, we can now handle the PHP requests, and we do so by including the fastCGI params module. This module has a whole bunch of different configuration. We're going to use the fastCGI_pass to pass these requests to the service site A on the port that we've exposed, which is 9000. We're also going to supply the fastCGI_index parameter with the value of index.php. We also need to set the fastCGI parameter of script file name. This is going to be set to our document root with the fastCGI script name value. We also need to adjust the path_info variable. We do that again via the fastCGI_ parameter of path_info, and we supply that with the variable fastCGI_path_info. We need to have this configuration in each of our sites. So copy this file and paste it into siteb.conf, save that and copy it into sitec.conf. We do need to adjust the configuration for each of these sites to supply the right server name and the right service that we want to proxy to. In site-b.conf, we want to change the server_name value from site-a.com to site-b.com. We also need to change the fastCGI_pass value from site-a to site-b. We need to do a similar thing to the site-c.conf file. In this case, we're changing the value of the server_name from site-a.com to site-c. And finally, we need to change the fastCGI_pass value from site-a to site-b. Within the conf directory, which is within the nginx-proxy directory, we need to supply a default.conf file. So create a new file within the conf directory, and we call this default.conf. This file is going to be used by the nginx web server to include all of those site configuration files that we've just created. To do that, type include and supply the path to these site configuration files. Now, remember, at this stage, we are within the container. So these files need to live within /etc/nginx within a folder called sites. and we're going to use asterisk here to include all the site files that end with .conf. The next thing we need to do is include this default.conf file as well as all the site.conf files to our Docker container. And we do that through the Docker file. Underneath our from statement, type copy and supply the path to our local default.conf file. In this case, it is ./conf because this is where we currently are. So it's here ./conf, and then it is default.conf. That is going to go to etc/nginx/conf.d/default.conf. This is the path within the container. This is the path that is currently local to this file system. So we're copying the default.conf file to our conf.d folder within our container. We also need to do this for our site configuration files. Now these live in /conf/sites, and we can use asterisk to get all of the files within this directory, and we're going to copy it over to etc/nginx/sites within our Docker container. So to recap, what we have here are two copy statements. The first copy statement will be copying the default.conf file that we have here. This is going to go to our container within the etc nginx conf.d directory as default.conf. We also have the second copy statement, which is going to copy all of these site files into the etc nginx sites directory. We have now set up the configuration for our Docker containers. In order to test this, we're going to be running this locally first. To do that, we need to adjust our host entry files. Now, this is going to be slightly different for different operating systems. I'm running on Mac OS. There are different ways to do this for Windows and different ways to do this for Linux. If you're on a Mac, type sudo and then nano/etc/hosts. This is your host file. As you can see down here, we have site-a.com, site-b.com, and site-c.com. This means that when I request these sites through a browser, they're going to be hitting localhost. And remember, we're using port 80 on our Nginx web server, which should mean that we push our requests to our local host, which is our Nginx server, which will then work out which website these requests go to. We need to save this host file. To update our system and refresh the host file changes, we need to type sudo kill all -H U P M DSN responder. Press enter, and that will refresh our system using our new changes in the host file. The last thing we need to do is to obviously build and run our Docker containers. And we do this using Docker Compose. Type Docker Compose up-d. Notice that what happens first is we build these Docker images. Once they have been built, we then create the Docker containers. And we have created 4 containers. We have the Nginx proxy, and then we have each container for the sites. If we were to type docker ps-a, we can see all of the containers that are currently running. Let's get into a browser and go to site-a.com. And here we can see the message, hello from site A. Let's go to site-b.com. Notice that this also says hello from site A. Let's also now try site-c.com. This also says hello from site A. So there is a problem somewhere. Let's take a look at our Docker Compose file for any configuration issues. I can already see the issue here. We have site-a as the volume of site-b. And I would imagine that's also the same for site-c, the service, which it is. So what we need to do is change the volumes for service site-b and service site-c to have the value of site-b /public for the site-b service and site-c for the site-c service. Once we've made those changes, type docker compose up-d again. Let's go back to the browser and ensure that those changes have worked. And here we can see the working changes. Site B now has the message hello from site B. Site C also has the message hello from site C. As always, the tutorial write-up, including the full code used in this tutorial, is in the show notes below. Also, do check out the other tutorials available at howtocodewell.net. If you found this tutorial useful, then please let the YouTube algorithm know. Click like, share, and subscribe to get the new tutorials coming soon. Thank you ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.